And we are live. Good evening. This July, this July 7th, Sunday night, with myself, Mariel Kovacs, on Let's Talk Real Talk on Parental Alienation. Tonight, we have a special guest with our Andy Martens from the Andy Martens Show. He's on our Parental Alienation page tonight. And with us tonight, we have Lynn Steinberg, PhD from California, to talk here on parent alienation. I'm going to have Andy talk for a minute before I introduce Dr. Lynn Steinberg. So, Andy, welcome to.
Thank you, Mary. Well, we're a team, Mary. This is the Andy Martin Show, or Real Talk, Let's Talk. We are on my personal page and on LinkedIn. I'm seeing it. So we're a team. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's the Andy and Mary Show or whatever.
That's
So
right.
it's great to be with you again. And our guest from California, Lynn Steinberg.
Yes.
And did you want me to start off while you share?
Well, let me just say a little bit about Dr. Lynn Steinberg.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, tonight she will critically address key areas where misinformation or disinformation is commonly spread by deniers of parent alienation. Dr. Steinberg will provide substantial evidence to counteract these misconceptions in each area discussed. We are finding that most of us people, advocates, specialists, are being denied access to the media because these deniers are squashing us. And what better person to have to come and speak the truth? Dr. Lynn Steinberg has been on my Let's Talk before, and we had some really good reviews on what these kids are going through. And some of the key areas where misinformation or disinformation is commonly spread by deniers of parental alienation include false belief. Dr. Lynn Steinberg, thank you for coming. Can you explain this situation on false belief that the alienated children are simply expressing their own choices and preferences to who the parent they want to be with?
Well, there's a lot of misinformation. It isn't just what the children are saying. It's, a number of years ago, I was in a workshop with Karen Woodall, whom I'm sure you know who she is. She's written a lot of books, and she's one of the primary theorists of our time in terms of parental alienation. And she mentioned at the time that it was because of these very strident feminist groups that were around. And I thought, oh, well, I'm a feminist. I don't understand what that
Neither.
But she was absolutely right. It is the domestic violence women's groups. And the one in particular is Violence Against Women Act, they call themselves, that they got a lot of money from the government, and President Biden has been a champion of abused women, which I think is wonderful, but I think the pendulum has actually swung at this time, and women are pretty much wanting to treat men in the way that they were treated, I think, is what the issue is. But anyway, they got a lot of money, and they're perpetrating this belief system, which is that men are always abusers, that women should always get the children, and that they have got cadence law. I hope my dog doesn't bark here. Sorry.
Okay. That's all right.
Just put him outside here.
We're dog friendly. I have Molly.
Yeah, I know. She's so cute.
Thank you.
So yeah, they've got a lot of money, and they're basically selling this whole idea by using situations like with cadence law, where a child has been killed. So what has happened is that the mother in many of these situations, although it's happened with men too, has said that there was domestic violence and felt that the child was in danger and didn't want the child to have any contact with the father in this instance. And that's how Caden's law came about, because Caden was a little girl who went on visitation with her dad and was killed. And so what these groups have been doing is they have been using these very horrible, unfortunate situations. Hey, come on. Sorry.
It's okay.
To say that they're supporting children not being murdered. Well, all these children, from what I have looked into, were not. The judge ordered visitation with the parent, but didn't get any recommendation from like a psychologist or somebody to do a risk assessment in the situation. And so, they went out with the father and they were murdered by the father. And they were all little kids, around 5. But that's not something that we would ever say was okay.
No.
What we are saying is that there are many children, 5.9 million, I think is the latest, for North America, who are alienated from a perfectly good parent. Now, what they say is that, I guess there's no perfectly good parents, right, besides themselves.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, but really, these are perfectly good parents. The court has already established that. There's been a thorough investigation, and I know when I'm an expert witness, I do a very thorough examination of all the documents, all the reports, everything anyone has ever said about the case, to make sure that there's no evidence of any kind of abuse by the alienated parent.
Right.
Whereas the way they're getting the law changed through Caden's law is by saying that women do not have to prove that there is any kind of domestic violence, and that they just have to say there is, and the courts have to take it at face value and not, order any kind of visitation. And so you can see the problems there. And actually, there's some people who are very much against parental alienation. You probably know who they are, who teach classes, and they have what they call the silver bullet.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah, which is that they say that they go back into court and they say, well, my child has just told me that this parent sexually abused them. So there's never been any mention of sexual abuse in these families
before.
And in fact, I've looked into a lot of these sexual abuse allegations, and it's not sexual abuse. Throwing a child into a pool and by accident touching their genitals is not sexual abuse. Putting a hand on a child's leg when they're little is not sexual abuse. But these children are taught, and this is where I think the abuse comes in. These children are taught to accuse a parent that they loved and probably do love of all these horrible things culminating in sexual abuse. And I don't know if you know about this case in California where this father he didn't see his child very much, but it was very clear that the child was being alienated against the dad, and the child would come and stay with the dad, and then predictably, go back to the mom, and the mom said there was sexual abuse. And then she got her other two children, who they were the father's stepchildren, and they said they had been sexually abused by this guy. Now, this guy was living with his significant other. He had stepchildren. He had his own children from a different relationship. Never any problems in those situations. But all of a sudden, with an alienator, he's been accused of sexually abusing these boys. Now, you're not going to believe what this consequence was. Life in prison. A life in
Is
prison.
that Connie Rugala's son-in-law?
No.
No? Oh, okay.
No, this is a different, and I'm
It's
sure
a different one?
significant
Okay.
other would talk to you, because she is trying to talk to everybody about what's going on. I mean, her partner is in prison for life.
Oh, it's her partner. That's right. He's in there for life. Okay. There's so many cases that it's hard to keep track of them all.
But this is really egregious that they would actually send someone to prison for life with no, I've read the paperwork, and there's no evidence of any kind of sexual abuse. And the accusations that the children make are so flimsy. I can't even believe, any jury would believe it. They actually said they didn't believe it, but that the guy didn't testify on his own behalf.
Right.
Which that was the lawyer's fault. The lawyer said no. So anyway, this whole thing is just horrible what's happening. And of course, now they're bringing this law into Canada. They want to say, that all these people are abusers if they're an alienated parent, and therefore they shouldn't have the children. And they refuse to look at the fact that most of these allegations, I think the CPS through the whole of North America did an evaluation, and I think they said 79% of all allegations are false.
Mm-hmm.
And then when there's a custody issue, it's even higher than that.
Yeah.
So they're bringing these false allegations into court. The judges have had all their power removed. They don't have any discretionary power now. And because they have to accept that this was abuse, they can't argue with that. I mean, it's just crazy. And the way they present themselves in the media is, we're saving children from being killed. Well, it has nothing to do with children being killed. They lie about statistics. They lie about what happens in court. They lie about accusations that they make in court. And we have looked into, like defamation suits, and really it's a problem because of the First Amendment rights issue.
Right.
ACLU will step in a second and protect these people's rights to say whatever they want in the media,
Right.
which is another crazy thing, right?
They're teaching children to lie. So these
Yes.
children, by the time they become young adults, they're like professional cons.
Well,
'Cause
the
that's all
American
they go.
Bar Association did a study. This was in 2007, I believe. And the American Bar Association published the study, and the book is called Children Held Hostage. I'm sure you read it.
Yes.
And they found that 89% of children who are alienated lie, and they simply parrot whatever the alienator says. And, and the judges are supposed to believe them. Well, the judges don't know any better, because for a start, this shouldn't be in the family courts. It should be in some kind of psychological setting.
Yes.
Trained psychologists, not just any old therapist or psychologist who doesn't know what they're doing. And I don't know how this is all going to change, but I think, alienated parents are going to have to step up to the plate and talk in Washington and in Canada, at the whichever is the federal level. And by the way, I live in Canada now.
You do?
I moved here in December.
Oh, welcome to Canada.
Thank you. And I moved here because I was getting so many death threats from these crazy people, these alienators, threatening me. I was really kind of a prisoner in my own home. So I moved to Canada.
Wow. Andy is from the Sioux. I'm like 20 minutes, 30 minutes from Toronto. So I didn't realize we're doing a Canadian show. But yes, I understand how, you are threatened. I've been stalked for 47 years. It doesn't stop. And when these alienators get really aggressive, they start branching out to their flying monkeys to stalk you, to hurt you, to lie about you. I mean, they gather their own group of people, like their old soldiers, right? So these alienating people are like cult leaders. They're sucking in.
Yesterday they were calling the people, me and a handful of other people who actually do reunifications, which are like 96% successful, which is a very high percentage in terms of having a success rate of reunifying alienated parents and children. They were calling us rapists.
Oh my gosh.
And I've gotten things that said, how does it feel, Lynn Steinberg, to be the most hated person on the internet? They're nuts,
Oh, I know. I get slandered a lot, and I'm so grateful for the people that know me that can stand up for me. Like Andy knows me well. I mean, we've been doing this show for 3 years. Come this July 26th, the day before my birthday. I mean, Andy surprised me with the greatest gift to help people out there know what parent alienation is all about. Social media cut me off. So now my pages are blooming because people see when you have evidence and you can produce it. And if social media accepts it and lets you, speak about it, that's all the power we need, because our evidence is proof on what the courts are doing to us. And if we don't produce the evidence, what's the sense of us talking, right? Because they're just going to call us liars.
In my situation where I'm an expert witness, and I go in on behalf of an alienated parent, always, I never go in on behalf of the alienators.
No.
But, I can show the court how an alienated parent has not been abusive and how they are the parents who need to have the children living with them.
Yes.
Until the alienated parent can get their act together and not alienate their children, because it's really psychological abuse, So when I help the alienated parent win that case, then, the judge will acknowledge that there is parental alienation and that this parent did not abuse the children. But once these crazy people get a hold of the case, they make it sound like it's the alienated parent who's doing the abusing, even though the courts and everybody else has found, even the police, have found that there is no abuse and that this parent does deserve to have a relationship with the children who have been alienated from them. And they do need to go to reunification. I mean, they completely spin the whole situation. They say that the alienated parent is the abuser, they're protecting the children. And I'm sure you know about that case in California where they actually abducted the kids from their mother, who was the non-abusive parent, the alienated parent, and kept them hidden for a month. And they were not even charged with the
That was the two teens, young teens.
Yeah, well, you can name the case. I'm not allowed to name it.
No, but they were, I don't remember their names, but they were young teenagers, right? Young kids.
One is 17 and the other one's 13.
Yeah, I know that one, but I don't remember their names. Andy, I'm going to get you to weigh in here for a minute.
We were talking.
Hi, Lynn. Yeah, that's right. A lot of misinformation and disinformation. You're seeing it in politics and right now with the mess that's going on in the United States. And I posted something the other day that the incumbent leaders are in big trouble in terms of over COVID. And now that we're in 2024, it's a big mess. They're in trouble. People are being fed up. We've seen leadership changes in the UK, the far left, which is troublesome, and now France. And I don't think that the United States and Canada are they're close behind in this. You're going to see leadership changes in both the United States and in Canada. Liberalism is not working.
Well, that's another reason I left the US, because I was pretty disgusted with what I was seeing. Yeah.
But yeah, that's right. And Lynn, you're the expert, but I'm going to repeat this time and time again on the shows. How you get along with people is a choice, and I'm going to use and keep using the example of Mary and I in a relationship doing this show. If you feel good about somebody, you will let them do this and that, and there's no reason to get angry. But isn't that true in parental alienation? It's a choice that these people have made, i.e. alienator or alienated parent, to get into that situation.
Well, the truth of the matter is that the alienating parent has a personality disorder. And when the other parent leaves them, it's such a wound for them. They cannot stand to be
rejected,
to be blamed, to be put down by the other parent. And they really feel like they own that other parent. So when that parent leaves, like right now,
Andy, turn your mic down.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll put mine on.
Sorry.
Right now, I'm working with this case where this guy left this woman. They got a divorce, right? And then they were co-parenting just fine. And then the father met someone else and remarried a year and a half after they divorced. So they'd been separated for a while, right? And it was only when he remarried that all the problems started. And to the point that she broke up his new relationship. The woman moved back to Europe, where she was from. And, he doesn't see his children at all. He couldn't pay for all the child support, so that his license and passport were suspended. Just crazy stuff. And then she claimed that the divorce wasn't valid in Canada, and the judge agreed. She was divorced for a year and a half. How is it that you're suddenly going along with the idea that she isn't divorced? So the poor guy had to leave Canada, so that he isn't considered a bigamist.
Right.
Oh, God. Yeah. What a mess.
I truly believe that, because in 2018, I was divorced 15 years. I had no relationship. I worked on myself to get better and all that. I meet a man. Within 7 months, I got served by my ex-husband to take me back to court, because he was suing me back for spousal support because I was seeing someone.
Yeah,
But
it's
yet
like if
he,
you're suffering, they're happy.
yeah,
What
exactly.
we're dealing with is a personality disorder. And
And yet,
personality disorders are intractable. They don't
yes,
change,
I
you know.
couldn't, you can't get away from them. This is, what is it, pre-separation divorce? Is that what they call it? But yet for 3 years prior to divorce, him and his mistress of 3 years had me falsely arrested. Why
Mhm.
can't they leave us alone and just let the children come to us?
Because
You
you have
know,
wounded them
he
forever
did.
by
He
leaving
did.
them,
And and and
How
then
dare you?
I just came to me why he was so wounded was because he was alienated from his own father, never to have a father in those 46 years we were together. Well, not 40, he was 46 years old when we separated, but that 46 years he never had a father. So I guess when I said I was going to divorce him, it triggered.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
well, there is a generation to generation
yes,
aspect of this.
yeah.
Yeah,
And now I've been alienated from my own children for 19 years. He's withheld them from me. But
yeah.
they
Well,
don't want
that's
you to move on.
punishment. They want to punish you for
Yeah.
leaving them.
Well, that's it.
I know they would say, if they hear me say that, which they probably will, I know they would say, oh, no, I don't want to be with you. But
Yeah.
why are they punishing the person who left?
Yeah.
Why do they have to be so vindictive? And I'm sure you know about the John Mast case, right?
Yes. Yes.
He left and, he ended up being shot by the father-in-law,
Yeah.
killed because he managed to get to see his children. He managed to get visitation. So that was too much for them, they
Exactly. It's so
killed
so sad that they have to resort to this. A lot of it is a lot of jealousy because the children have a better bond. Not that a better bond, it's a different bond between mom and dad, but it's still a bond. And one parent sees that better bond that they think is better than what they are getting, get jealous. But it's like a dog too. A dog will go to more one person than the other person. What are you going to do, shoot the other person because the dog's going to them? I mean, you can't be like that.
right? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, so
that's why
it,
they have to change the way the children even think, make them dependent on the alienator so
right.
that they're afraid to do something wrong, to the alienator.
Well, yeah, it's like a domestic violence survivor always has to walk on eggshells. Well, so do these kids, because
Oh, yeah.
these kids here, they stop, jump in and say, "Stop, daddy, stop, mommy, don't scream." That when these kids are saying these things, they feel what the abusive parent is doing to the other parent.
Oh, yeah.
They know the difference. I heard a
They,
story.
go ahead. Sorry.
This was just a quick one. I was being told that he watched his father abuse his mother, and he was only 4 years old and he didn't know what to do. So he took the laundry basket and threw it on his dad's head and said, "Dad, stop, stop, stop hurting mommy." And he cried, telling me, this is the full grown man telling me this. And I said, it's not your fault. You were 4 years old. So a lot of us carry that kind of pain
Mhm.
for the rest of our lives. That's childhood trauma.
Yeah.
So when you grow up to be an adult and you're doing the same thing, you need help,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
this denial of psychological harm caused by parent alienation, um, what are the consequences of children, that they deal with? I know what my kids went through: depression, anxiety, suicide. How far does it go?
Well, I think suicide, there's nothing beyond suicide. But, children suffer a lot when this happens because they split psychologically, and they're dealing with so much psychological angst that they don't succeed in so many areas of their lives, like relationships and careers and school. And if they do, they can be very cut off emotionally and marry someone that would do the same thing all over again, so the life is the same, even though they're adults now. And the depression, the anxiety, it can end in suicide, and it very often does. The year before last, there were 3 kids in my practice as, alienated children who actually committed suicide.
Oh.
Yeah, which is a lot in one practice.
One practice, yeah, that's, and then, you get blamed for it because it's your practice, and, all of a sudden it's just an attack on you because they say that it's all your fault. I've been dealing with that too. I get phone calls after phone calls, and then they want to kill themselves. And then I get, oh, it's all your fault because I feel this way. Well, you know what? It's not because of us. It's because of yourself not being strong enough. And what we have to do is educate these young kids to be stronger than these alienators are, because the power and control is in the mind of these alienators, right? So we alienated kids grow up, become adults, and it's there. It's stuck with us forever. So a lot of times, a lot of us can't deal with it, and this is where suicide comes in, and murder suicides. And
well, I worked with this girl. She was 13, I think, when I started working with her and her dad, and they came in every week, which is unusual that it worked to have a weekly thing. But what I said to the girl, I said, you have to be Switzerland. You cannot take sides with your parents. And if one of them is putting pressure on you to do that, say to them, I don't want to hear it. I'm Switzerland. Yeah. And so she wrote to me, she's 18 now. And she said, I just want to let you know, Dr. Lynn, that I told my parents I'm Switzerland all these years, and now I'm 18 and I have a good relationship with both of them.
That's a good idea. Maybe we need to promote that for the alienated kids, and they'll be curious. We could go on TikTok and say, hey.
Because they won't know what they can do. Once they're reunited with the other parents, they say, well, how can I handle this? I don't know what to do.
Right.
And I use that analogy. That's what happened in the war. Switzerland was neutral. It didn't take sides.
Right.
They did do things to take sides, but in any case, the kids don't know that.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Andy?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Exactly right. Lynn, what about the narcissist and the parental alienation? All of it is kind of misinformation, disinformation, because I think, yeah, you've got personality disorder, but these people are deliberately looking for people that they can set them up into failure, and they project a false image, gaslighting and all of that at the beginning, and then they sink in the real thing. It's really misinformation and disinformation right from the beginning.
It's kind of from the top all the way down too,
right?
Because there was the study done, well, I mean, it's all the way to the UN, where these people are fighting and saying there's no such thing as parental alienation. Well, you just have to ask an alienated parent or child, and they will say, yes, there is something like alienation. But there was this study done by Jean Meyer, who is at Georgetown University in Washington. I think that's what it's called. And what happened was that Jennifer Harman tried to replicate the study, and also other people like William Burnett, and they couldn't replicate it. And, when people do scientific studies, that's the hallmark of a good study is that it can be replicated. And they were not able to replicate it, and they tried to inform the university and various other places about the study. And there's so much misinformation just from this one study that not enough people know that it was not replicatable.
Wow.
So, and then of course there's the UN, where they tried to say that parental alienation was pseudoscience,
Right.
and that there's no validity. Well, that's just nonsense. I mean, there's thousands of scientific studies at this point, research studies, that it's all been proven. Whatever you want to bring up, it's been proven. But
That's
anyway,
right.
she gave this very rambling statement to the UN. I don't know if anybody saw it, but she didn't say anything about being able to prove what she was saying. She just made these long-winded statements about there was no such thing as parental alienation. And a number of years ago, I can't even remember when it was, maybe like 2010, the UN declared a day as Parental Alienation Day. So they had already approved it. So she was trying to get them to say there's no such thing as parental alienation. And the UN did not say that that is true. They basically just ignored what she said and just went on.
Right.
And what these people have done is tell all the legislators that the UN said that there is no parental alienation. It's absolutely not true. But yet they presented it in that way. They lie so much. It's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. You have an investigator journalist. Well, you're not there anymore, but in California, Susan Bassi. I mean, she went through so much to prove that the parent alienation is real. She's gotten into lawyer clubs. She's gotten into the judges' minds. I mean, she's really done a great job out there. And then you got another one like Michael Volpe that is saying, it's all pseudoscience and parent alienation is no more real than flying unicorns and stuff. And these are the people that, are the deniers that are hurting us alienated parents, because he doesn't know when a parent is grieving their child and what goes through our minds. And he calls us all child abusers. I mean, that's slanderous right there. And
you can't, because he's a journalist, he can say those things. He can put it in print according to the First Amendment rights issues.
And that's wrong, because he's got no evidence. And yet if we called him abusive, what's he going to do? He's going to take us to court and charge us for slander. I mean, this is how parent alienation works. And if you can't see that, because you got one slandering the other and the other one's trying to prove the truth, right?
Well, they have got a very good platform, because they are saying that they are preventing children from being murdered. Now, what alienation has to do with any of that, or reunification has to do with any of it, I just don't even understand. But when I was at the
I don't either. I don't believe it.
When I was at the legislature, and this woman, you're only supposed to have 2 minutes, but half an hour later, she was talking about her little boy being killed. And I have absolutely 100% sympathy for this woman,
Is that Elena?
No.
Another one. Okay.
So, they have these people in every single state.
Yes.
So there's many children. They all have, all the states' laws have different children's names.
Right.
Law, Pete's law in California, etc. But
Kaden's law was, she lived. It's this incident happened 20 minutes from my home.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's heartbreaking.
when this woman started talking, and then we had 2 minutes, stop talking, and then we had 2 minutes to talk about, our side of it, they were cutting us off and not wanting to hear us.
Mhm.
And one of the legislators says, I want to be a co-author on this bill. And he says, sign me up. And then all the other people said, yes, sign me up too. They didn't even understand all
Wow.
the problems with the bills. But because this, and you've got to admire what they did, right? But because this poor mom was the front of this bill and she was crying about her little boy, which we have complete sympathy with.
Right.
That's what they were hearing. They weren't hearing that there are parents who never see their children and need to be reunited. And the courts want to work with us, to see that happen, or at least we could educate them to work with us.
Right.
They don't see any of that, these legislative people. They're not trained. They don't, as with the courts, they don't know about psychology. They can't do risk assessments. They don't even understand that these poor kids would have been saved if the psychologist did a risk assessment on that crazy murdering parent.
Exactly. And a lot of these young teenagers wouldn't be drug and alcohol addicted, and runaways once the judge awards the alienating parent to have access to the kids and deny the other one, because the kids depended on the good parent to turn to. They can't turn to the alienator, right? And all the alienator has to offer is the door. You don't like it, leave. Or, so
well, a judge in Canada made an alienating parent write out, I will love my child more than I hate the other parent. She had to write it out like 5,000 times or something like that.
what?
That's the bottom line.
Wow.
People hate the other parents more than they love their child, because
Exactly.
why would they put their child through something as horrendous as they do?
Right. And especially when they were stable, happy, healthy. And now they all have some kind of illness. Their life expectancy is shortened because they're suffering from a nervous disorder, psychological disorders, or whatever it is.
And the alienating parent will promote those disorders, as sick as that is.
Yeah.
Will even allow their kids to go into a hospitalization, to prove how the other parent has caused that. And if the child goes to the other parent, then the kid will kill themselves. I mean, they paint that picture. They're willing to sacrifice their children to get what they want.
That's it. You said it. They paint the picture so the kids will follow the trail to wherever the alienators are leading them.
Yeah.
So we're getting to close to 45 minutes here. I want to ask you about they say that there's no good treatments available for these kids.
Well, we're talking about treatment for the children, and we're talking about reunification programs. Reunification programs, and there's not that many in the United States because people drop out, from being a reunification therapist because they're so threatened by what happens. They have to be protected by police, But the reunification programs, like I said, are 96% successful. And I'll tell you why. Because they love this parent they're being reunited, no matter how long they've been alienated from the other parent. When they see that other parent, all the stuff about them going to kill the other parents, or they're going to kill the therapist, or whatever the situation is, it all goes out the window within the next few hours. And every alienation, reunification therapists will tell you that. And there have been 3 programs that have been scientifically researched and shown to have these kind of success rates, and that the therapy approach that they use is very valid. You know, the FBI started many, many years ago doing this kind of therapy, or whatever you want to call it, that the FBI does, you know, to reunite abducted children with their parents. So it's not like it's a new thing.
No.
You know, transporting children to these programs is not new either, because there have been transportations for children who are addicted. You know, they get picked up not wanting to go, and they go to a detox program. Well, it's not much different to what happens in these reunification programs. And honestly, those 4 days are so moving. You know, the therapists do not threaten them. They don't do things. Usually by the end of the 4 days, you know, the kids are hugging the therapist right along with the alienated parent. And it's a really lovely and moving experience. But the alienator makes it into something that's, you know, we're torturing these children. I mean, these children got on TikTok and said that I threatened them, I withheld food. I mean, what a bunch of nonsense. And when I can talk about it, I have videos to show the opposite of that.
Right, that's true.
I will show them. I will put them up there for everybody to see. With these kids talking and saying how much they liked everything, and you know, they got fed every time they wanted to. They could choose whatever they wanted to eat. Nobody threatened them to send them away with no blanket and no food.
Oh, crazy. I know what it's like. I mean, I spent most of my life with the military, and who better to know than these fathers or moms now come home after long tours, you know, 6 to 12 months away. It only takes 4 days for the child to start hanging on to that parent's leg again.
Yeah, they just have to have that other parent out of the way so they don't have the loyalty conflict.
Right. It's not that
completely different when they don't have that loyalty conflict.
Well, that's it. But for me, because we were still together, and I had to step back so that the kids would run to dad. Right. So that's basically, I wasn't an alienator, but as a mom, a caring, loving mom, I wanted my children to bond with their father again. Yeah. So I knew how to do it.
The military has like a whole section of people, alienated parents, you know, who are fighting all of this because it's so prevalent. It's really bad.
And at one time, we were bringing our children forward to get their father or mother from long tours. Now they're taking these kids away from the mother or the father that were away, saying, oh, I was always there. No, you weren't always there. You were gone 6 to 12 months a year. So this is how they're getting back at that parent, because, well, maybe something happened between the mom and the dad, but that's between them two. Don't put the children in arm's length, because they're already missing half their family because you're always on tour. You're posted somewhere far away. You think they would want to
become the weapons.
Yes, for real. You know, they're the real weapons.
Right.
And then later on, they become the mass destruction, because they're now going to hurt somebody else's adult child and then their future children. Yeah, it's so sad.
You knew about the case it wasn't in New Jersey, where the father got one of the children to murder the mom.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's more than one.
Keep his hands clean. Yeah, to keep the parent hands clean. They use the children
Yes,
My children were used to push me down the stairs, to put knives to my throat. I mean, the things that I had to endure watching my teenagers do to me because they were instructed. The
it's
father even told a 16-year-old to cry suicide when she went back to boarding school that following Monday. And I said, that's not a nice thing to teach your child. I mean, why would you do that? It worked with you because that's what I was threatened all the time, that he would kill himself if I left him. But don't teach your children to do that.
that's
And
right.
that's really a mental
And
illness.
don't tell your children that that transpired between the two of you. You know,
Well,
it's
she was on the phone when she heard it because she giggled. And I said, don't do that when you go to school, okay? I don't, this was my 16-year-old daughter. And I said, Nicole, you don't do that. What did she do? I got a phone call from the school. They held her for 72 hours. And I couldn't get to school because there was a huge storm. She's out in the Kawarthas 5 hours. We couldn't get there. So I just said, keep her for 72 hours. She has to learn. You can't cry like that. And now she's suffering with severe mental health issues because I wasn't there to help her. I mean, I wanted to, but they put restraining orders on you. They do anything to keep you away from protecting your own children. It's so sad. So sad.
terrible problem.
It's a terrible problem. Andy, you want to jump in here? We got a question. You want to read that question for us, Andy?
I'm not seeing it. Oh, okay. Yeah, and then I'll ask a couple of mine. The question is, we cannot prove 100% alienation case. What should we do?
So, what you need to do if you're still battling in the court system is get an expert, because an expert can go in there and say things that you might want to say, or can be your mouthpiece in a way, but also know every single thing about all the material and be able to prove that this is alienation. You know, like this case I just did where I'm an expert, I use coercive control because it's become a law in so many states. And, in Canada, it's a law throughout the country.
Yes.
And so when you can show how this other parent coercively controlled the children, it's against the law. And it becomes criminal. And so you can win a parental alienation case. And an expert is the person who can verbalize all of that. And because they're usually well-degreed and, experienced and have worked with this population, they can prove that there is parental alienation.
Is that a forensics expert? Or what kind of expert?
Yeah, people call us forensic experts.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's
that
not
answers
hard to prove parental alienation. The truth is that a lot of the judges don't even understand, even though they say, I know everything there is to know about parental alienation. I hear that all the time.
Right.
And I think, oh, yeah, right. I've just been studying it for like 20 years, but this judge knows everything is to know.
Yeah, 46 years for me.
Yeah, but really, with an expert can prove it and be your advocate. And once it's proved in the court, you can move on from there.
Yes, exactly.
Parental alienation. Of course, the naysayers say that the fathers are the ones that use that as a strategy to defeat the mothers and take the children. That is such a bunch of nonsense. You either there's parental alienation or there's not parental alienation. And I have seen cases where it's not parental alienation, and I say that in the court. I had a case where the judge called me and he said, oh, this father, he's not alienated. He's the biggest narcissist I ever met. And I was like, okay, but the father says he's alienated, and I scheduled the reunification. And sure enough, as soon as the father got there, it was so obvious he's been torturing his poor child for years and years, holding everything above her head, saying, I'm not going to pay for your school and I'm not going to pay for your groceries. And, he was the biggest narcissist, and it was not an alienation case. And that's what I called the judge, and I said, you're absolutely right. This is not an alienation case.
That's coercive control?
The father, the father was typical alienator,
Yeah. Sad. Okay, Andy, what's your next question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a couple of last questions here since we're running close to the hour now.
Yeah.
PTSD and compulsive lying, could they be meshed in with parental alienation as well, creating these dilemmas and heartache for families?
Well, PTSD is usually what the alienated parent has.
Right.
They're just tortured, really, and they're suffering from PTSD. But the lying is part of a personality disorder.
It's a form of it, because I know some people are compulsive liars and they believe the lies. They could lie to medical people. They could lie to all kinds of people.
That would be a narcissistic personality disorder. They believe themselves. It's quite remarkable.
It is.
So it's just like a branch of personality disorder, would you say? Or?
Oh, yeah. It's pretty much a narcissistic personality disorder, because they're so grandiose, that they insist something's the truth and they believe themselves. So it would be a narcissistic personality disorder.
And they lie even if they don't have to.
Yes.
That's the sad part.
It's all in their need to feel better than anyone else, and to be the center of attention always. Have everything go their way, it's poor kids.
Exactly.
And they come back and say, they cheat on their spouses, and then the spouse confronts them. I didn't cheat.
Yeah.
Well, again, a compulsive liar believes the lies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you watch these, True Detective and all those shows, and you see them being interviewed, I mean, they really believe themselves.
They do. And you could catch them. You could spot where they're lying.
Yeah. And they'll say, well, I told you what to do to catch the killer, and you didn't do any of it. That's what they say to the police.
Yeah.
They want to be in charge at all costs. So, yeah, that's what narcissists and psychopaths are like.
Yes. It's shameful that, the kids that are now conditioned to become that, our world's going to be full of them, and they're going to be pulling together like a little army of.
And the courts are not qualified to determine whether someone has a personality disorder.
That's right.
Because they don't know. These people come in and they're so calm and cool and collected. Steve Miller used to talk about that. And here comes the alienated parent, who's pretty much a basket case because they have PTSD. And, judges make some kind of decision based on that, which has nothing to do with being able to diagnose someone correctly. And so, to answer that person's question as well, that when you go in and you show how the alienator has lied, first of all, they fall apart when that happens. But second of all, you have to show the judge that this person is really a personality disorder and is abusing the children.
Mm-hmm.
And they are alienators, and the judge needs to act on that. That's what an expert witness can do.
Yes, exactly. They need to to follow the steps in order for you to understand. You know, you can't just say to a judge, he alienated my kids from me, and then the judge says, well, what is that?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
You have to, you have to get an expert in there, because they have everything back in them to be able to say that to a judge.
that's right. And they know exactly how they alienated, why they alienated, and you know, it's a tough situation. But if the judges stopped alienating these kids, stopped making them pick and choose a parent, I think that would be what we need to embellish on, that the kids need both parents. And if
That's what we
if
always say, in courts, is we say kids need both parents, but these crazy people go in and say, no, they don't need an abuser as a
right,
parent. Well, I would agree with that. But if someone's been proven not to be an abuser, that kid needs that parent in their lives. They
right,
need that parent in their lives more than they need someone who's brainwashing them.
that's right, that's right. Well, we're up at the hour. Uh, Thank you so much, Lynn. I've got just one thing to say to parents out there, but I want you to give us your last thoughts before we sign off tonight. And Andy, I want your last thoughts as well. So, Lynn, your last thoughts for parents out there going through parent alienation. I mean, going through court today or tomorrow. What's your advice to them?
If you need help, reach out, because there are us people who know how to help you. And secondly, I would say to alienated parents, we need you. We need you to get up and talk to the legislature in Washington and connect with these people who are fighting to have good laws, like Robert Garza. Have you had him on yet?
Not yet. Not yet. I'm working on it.
He developed this law in Texas that kind of cuts through all this nonsense, which is that if the alienated takes time away from you and makes these false allegations, prove to the court that that's what they've done, and then you get all that time back. And that's a law in Texas now. It just cuts through all the nonsense,
And Texas was bad.
It's really good.
Wow, that's a huge improvement. Oh, yes, I did. That's the new bill. And that's when Petra Dieter and Claudia Olivia.
This is
Oh, that's another one? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Claudia did something else, which is to say that there be consequences for alienators when they withhold the children and the police go out there, that the police could actually find them on the government.
That's good.
That's that bill. But Robert Garza's bill is, I think it's called Time Taken, Time Given.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he came up with this bill, and he's trying to get it passed in all the states now. But get him on the show to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, of course,
you.
Madison Wellborn, the person who's an alienated child and is speaking out about what they go through. And, I mean, they're great.
I listen to a lot of her videos and stuff too, because I went through it too, 40 years alienated from my dad. So I know the sick feeling I get when I had to, think about what I did. And it's easier to reunify with them at the end, because that way you can release that burden that you suffered all those years. It's so important to be the weight off your shoulder. But thank you, Lynn. This was a great podcast.
Thank you for having me. And
Thank you. Welcome to Canada, Lynn. Which province did you end up settling in?
Sorry, what did you say?
Which province did you end up settling in Canada?
Yeah, well, I'm happy here, I have to say.
Great, yeah. Are you in the West Coast? Did you keep it in the West Coast, or from
What?
California to where in Canada are you? Which province?
On Vancouver Island.
Oh, it's beautiful there. Yeah. You
Yes, it's
picked a great
lovely.
spot.
It's so
Mhm.
peaceful and the people are so nice and I feel safe, you know.
Well, good for you.
Although I will tell you that when I moved here, these crazy people tried to get me not be allowed to have a license in Canada.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
But so many of the experts wrote in to the licensing board and said, this is nonsense, you know. And so I got my license, and they also prevented Kathleen and I from putting on a retreat for alienated parents because they went to the hotel and threatened the hotel and scared the hotel. So, you know, they can be mobilized anywhere.
Yeah, they can. They can.
Great.
Well,
Well, that's great. My final thought is this again, to what I said at the top of the show. Think about it. Make your choice wisely because, personality disorder, compulsive lying, parental alienation is like a cancer. You will not get rid of it if you choose to go through that door.
Yeah.
And I think both cancer and parental alienation and personality disorder have genetic components to them. So, in a way, it's not totally these people's fault, but it's easy. It's like a light switch. Think of what you're going to say and how you act, because without it, you're going to fail.
that's right. That's so true.
Well, I
But
would love to believe in karma. No,
well,
that I don't believe in karma, but I wish I did.
I know, me too.
Later on this month, I'm going to dig out the first show we did with Mary from the archives, and we will present it by itself. So you have to stay tuned. It's going to
I
happen this
will.
month.
I will. I know you put it on LinkedIn. I usually watch it. Yes.
Yeah, this is now double live feed on LinkedIn because mine is going to LinkedIn and so is Mary's. So double the pleasure for the viewers to watch.
Yes.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Well, thank you both for everything you do.
Thank you, Lynn.
All
Thank
right,
you
great,
so much.
great meeting you and great having you on the show.
And I just want to
You're
say
very
my last thoughts are out there to everybody is never give up and have faith in yourself. Believe in yourself. You know what you have done and how you've treated your children. Don't let anybody tell you any different. And also this Thursday, the 11th, which happens to be my son's 37th birthday, we will have Karen Woodall on the show at 1 p.m. Yes.
I'm going to watch. I'm going to go to her conference in September in London on the
Is
12th.
London, Ontario?
No, London, England.
Oh, London, England. Oh, wow. I'd love to go too. I wish I could have the funds, but wow. But
Well, it's
anyways,
a little cheap from where you are than where I am.
oh, is it? Oh, okay.
But I'll watch. Yeah, she's
Okay, good.
It's
Good.
quite a flight from Vancouver to London, England. That's a few hours flying time.
yeah, it's long.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
but
is.
I'm going.
All right.
Well, that's good. That's good. But anyways, thank you so much again. And alienated parents, grandparents, alienated children, don't give up. Have faith, connect, reconnect, and reunify. You'll feel better in the end.
I
Thank
said
you.
that. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone. Good night, everyone.
Good night.